So in the first video, I went over the weight distribution that you should be feeling when you come down in a squat. Now I want to talk about the hip shift that sometimes happens as you're coming down or coming back up out of a squat. And it can happen for a bunch of reasons. One is mobility, meaning maybe one ankle is a little more mobile than the other. One hip is a little bit more mobile than another. There could be a strength discrepancy, so meaning one side is stronger than the other. And that can either be from like the quadriceps, or it can even be your hip and sort of not helping to keep you centered. And then the third reason could be because you had a prior injury. So if someone has come back from, let's say, an ACL reconstruction, you're more likely to want to favor the other leg to avoid putting a lot of weight on the surgically repaired side. And so it's trying to figure out why it's occurring, is it even a problem, and then finding the right solution to improve it. So the first thing we want to address is, could it be a mobility issue? So let's start with the hip. You're gonna sit nice and tall. If you want, you can hold on to something, either a set of chairs, or if you have a rack, you just hold onto the rack. You're gonna lift your leg up just a little bit, and I want you to internally rotate, or rotate the heel away from your center. I'm kind of making a note, how far can I go without allowing my thigh to kind of move with it, right? So we only want rotation of the hip. Kind of make a mental note, where did I get to? You can also do this for external rotation or bringing the heel toward the center line. So you're here, you're gonna rotate externally, again trying to keep this thigh locked into position, and then rotating back. And then we're gonna test out the other side. Again, get nice and tall. You're gonna draw that leg straight up. You're going to rotate internally, rotate it externally, trying to keep that thigh in place here. And if you notice that both internal and external rotation for each leg is pretty similar, then you can kind of check the box off and say, it's probably not my hips. So the next thing you want to assess are your ankles. You're going to place your toes up against the wall. Here I'm going to use a box so that I can keep this consistent inside the rack. And we're going to keep your foot planted and let your knee come over the first and second toe. And so if you end up kind of hitting the wall, in this case I'd hit the box, you're going to slide your foot back just a bit and then test again, trying to keep the hips square as you do it, and find a position where that's kind of as far as I can go without maybe rotating or coming up onto my toes, right? So let's say my outer limit's about here without having my heel come up off the ground. And so I should be able to approximate the exact same position on my other foot. You switch, let yourself rock forward, and you should be able to touch the wall without having your heel come up. It's not a mobility issue from left to right side. We then want to see if maybe it's a strength issue. So the simplest motion you can do is just a single leg squat, or kind of a modified pistol squat. And you want to be able to see, can you achieve sort of similar control and depth on both legs, right? So you should be able to switch and get to about the same depth and control on both sides without really any issue. And so if you come down and you notice that, let's say you're more dominant leg, so I'm right-handed, so I'm more right leg dominant. I'm coming down on my right leg, it not only feels more solid, but I have more control, my weight is more evenly distributed. Then the left side, when I try to come down, the depth is a little bit not as good. I can feel my knee kind of wobbling a little bit, and that's also a product of my foot wobbling. Then that lets me know that my left side, there's a little bit of a strength imbalance between left and right, which could be showing up on my bilateral back squat. So let's say you've done your mobility and you've ruled out that there's a discrepancy between left and right side, both in the hip and the ankles. You do your unilateral motion and you notice that one leg is a little bit stronger than the other. So we know that the hip shifting could be caused by a strength imbalance. And so one way that we can sort of correct that, if we know that the shift is occurring is to push yourself into the shift and force your muscles to sort of overcome the positioning. And so this is an RNT squat, or reactive neuromuscular training type of squat. You loop a band around something that is not going to move. You can always ask a friend to hold on to it. And then we're going to loop it up and around and put it around our waist. And move to the side to just get just enough tension on the band. And so if you know that you shift this way toward the right, then you want the band to pull you into the compensation so that you force yourself to engage and feel a little bit more balanced as you're coming down in a squat. So you're here and you come down and try to sort of feel that position as you're coming up and down out of that squat. Here. And again, paying attention to, are you rocking? Are you able to maintain kind of a nice and straight up and down motion? So one of the last reasons that people shift during their squat is due to a prior injury or surgery. And so I picked this up from a colleague of mine who's a PT, and he sees a lot of ACL reconstructions. And so what ends up happening during the rehab process, he noticed that a lot of people would shift to avoid putting a lot of weight on the knee that is surgically repaired, which makes total sense. And so what he does is he takes a tennis ball, and let's say I've had this surgically repaired and I'm shifting this way, right, to avoid putting weight on here. You're going to take the tennis ball and place it under the heel on the side that you're shifting. So if I, again, avoiding weight on this leg, I will cue the person, don't crush the tennis ball. And so it's going to teach you how to redistribute more weight onto this leg because you're shifting in the opposite direction, right? So you're just here, again, coming down, trying to feel more weight on this leg, trying not to crush the tennis ball, and then come back up. Trying to keep the hips level and the weight evenly distributed as you come down. So to bookend this hip shift squat video, I kind of want to reiterate the importance of, once again, focusing on the feet and ensuring that there's a proper weight distribution, which is going to be facilitated also through your hips. And a lot of the clients that come to see me who maybe exhibit this hip shift, by just kind of regressing the motion, taking the bar away, taking all the weights away, and having someone just become more in tune with what exactly are you feeling both coming down and coming back up during your squat, goes a long way to really correct this problem. And so if someone focuses on intrinsic foot positioning and that they're engaging their hips properly from the beginning down and up, then we seem to see far less problems with this whole hip shifting that's going on. One final thing that I want to bring up is that in some people, there's just a structural skeletal difference and you just naturally sit with one foot just a little bit more externally rotated. And to that I would say, if I have a client come in who exhibits this and has no pain, no prior history of injury, and has no issues in terms of progressing and moving, then that's not something that I would address or even bother to mess with. Not to go back on some cliche saying, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that wraps up this video today. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and I will respond hopefully in a timely manner. All right, till next time.